I'm happy to be here at a satsang on the Bhagavad Gita. Many years ago, my last semester at the university in California, I came across a course in Oriental literature. And one of the main books that we got to study was the Bhagavad Gita. I had never seen anything like it. I was stunned is not too strong a word that something like this could have been written. It was so clear and so, I don't know, obviously there were things that were beyond me at that point, but it was just the way its presentation style just captured me. To the point that about a year and a half later, I was in New Delhi. And I had come to India because of that inspiration and was introduced there to a second book that also changed my life, Autobiography of a Yogi. So I found the book. It's a little humorous because I was born in California and I had come all the way to New Delhi on my spiritual search, and I found this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and I was very excited about it in the first few chapters, and I was thinking, I'm going to find this man's ashram and I'm going to study here in India. I'll probably never go back to the United States. And then of course, a few chapters later, I was a little surprised to see I go to the West. And not only did he go to the West, he went to California. And so it was a little divine joke on me to see that that was everything led back to my beginnings. Also, another thing that ties in here, I found out about Ananda shortly after I returned to the United States, and I went up to kind of check it out. I didn't know what it was. I thought it sounded interesting to me. I went up to check it out, and who was the first person that I connected with but Nayaswami Jaya. And we were on a little work detail together. And I didn't know who he was, but I was just impressed with him. I thought, this is a good man. He's very unpretentious. You could tell that he had a core, but he didn't flout it. He didn't try to impress anybody with it. He just was doing what he was supposed to do. We had the job of cleaning up. A fire had just destroyed Ananda's first temple. And so I never saw that first temple. I came the day after it burned down. But our job was to clear up the ashes and get ready to rebuild, which later that summer we did. That was 1970. So, but to focus on the Bhagavad Gita, you know, I've read it many times over the years. I carry it around with me in my backpack. And one of the strongest parts of that is the beginning of the 9th chapter. Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and he says, to you who have overcome the carping spirit, I now reveal the mystery divine. And it's such a amazingly penetrating and just fulcrum changing sentence. Because for me, and maybe for others, probably for a lot of others, we misunderstand what life's all about. We think that life is about achieving certain goals, like getting a nice house, cars, other material possessions, things that, the adult toys, as they call them, and maybe a big bank account, or even providing for our family, or whatever we think is our goal. And here, in one sentence, he shifts that all around. He says, when you have overcome the carping spirit, then you're ready to really get going in life. So the word carping, of course, is the key word there. Who knows what that means, carping? What's a synonym for carping? Yes. Complaining, the complaining spirit. I know when I go to family celebrations. Almost all of my family doesn't understand what I'm doing, and they have their other perspective on life. But what I notice when we go to these dinners is that people start complaining. They start complaining maybe first about the government, but maybe they start complaining about their neighbor, or complaining about their car doesn't work, or complaining about, you just go on and on and on. Just, life isn't fair. It's not working. I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get, and what I'm getting I don't deserve. And this whole consciousness, and my observation is it gets stronger as people get older, that it just kind of settles in and starts to take over, that you start to see the whole world through a complaining screen. And in this sentence, he says that's the impediment. The complaining is the impediment. What does that turn into then? Well, it means something amazing. It means that everything that comes to us is an opportunity for spiritual growth. It's mind-boggling in that sense, if you can think of it that way, because you can think, well, there's that guy at work that is really difficult to deal with. Why do I have to have a desk near him? And Krishna would say, well, that's because he's there to teach you a lesson. He's there to give you an opportunity to develop something in yourself that needs developing. In one of my favorite books by Swami Kriyananda is the book called Out of the Labyrinth. It used to be called Crises in Modern Thought. That's the first book that Swami Kriyananda wrote. And it's actually very closely linked to this passage in the Bhagavad Gita, because he goes through a very detailed and thorough examination of life, and to come to the point where he talks about natural law. He says, life is governed by natural law. And when he defines that, natural law is just this process of awakening, that all of life is about awakening. It's about raising our consciousness to higher and higher levels. And how does that happen? Well, that's the way life is set up, because whatever lesson we're ready to learn manifests in front of us. And we have the choice, though. We have the choice. We can either complain about it, because it's probably uncomfortable. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a chance for growth. If it was easy, and like, oh, this is so simple, we wouldn't really be growing. But if it tweaks us in some way, if it kind of goes against what we really liked, that's a sign. You can be for sure. You can know that's the opportunity. That's what's coming to us, and our job is to say yes to it. Again, when I first came to Swami Kriyananda, his motto at that time was "Say yes to life." It's exactly the same thing as this stanza. Don't complain about life. Say yes to it. Just say, okay, this is what's happening. And everybody's life is different. Everybody's life is unique, and the lessons that come to us are unique. But we all are faced with the same challenge. Can we say yes to it, or are we going to complain about it? Are we going to try to hide and say, nope, God made a mistake. This is the wrong lesson at the wrong time. I'm out of here. And that, of course, simply delays the process of growth. We talk a lot, I do a lot of work, most of my life is devoted to education. And we have something called Education for Life, that is an approach started by Paramahansa Yogananda a little over 100 years ago, back in when he was in Ranchi, and then developed by Swami Kriyananda for a Western audience in the 1980s. And one of the things that comes up is, how do you help children learn values? How do you help children know how to live? And the approach is actually uniquely different than a lot of approaches, because most people want to teach children, want to say, you should do this, or you shouldn't do this. There's these laws that are laid down for us. Probably that's the way you were raised. Probably, I doubt that, maybe you had a really special parent that didn't do that, but most parents get into that habit of just, my job is to teach my children. Oh, so same thing with education. As a teacher, my job is to teach my children. But from this perspective, the same exact thing is happening to a child as is happening to the adults. Lessons are coming to them to help them awaken to a higher state of consciousness. And the parent or the teacher's job is to kind of just help them see that clearly. Just to say, well, okay, the child comes home and says, in school today, they were really mean to me. They took my ball and they didn't give it back and stuff. And so, one option would be to run to the teacher and say, we have to have more rules about sharing balls, and this isn't fair to my child. But from this perspective, the approach would be, well, how did you feel about that? How did you feel when they took your ball? What could you do about it? What could you do? How could you respond to it in a way that would bring more energy, more, a higher level of energy, a higher level of consciousness? And then if the child has some ideas, you want to encourage that. You want to say, well, we could try that. Tomorrow, if you see those boys, why don't you just walk up and give them your ball? Try out and see what happens. Or maybe you want to go to a different side of the playground or something. But again, you're wanting the child to start to learn to respond to life this way, just respond in a creative way so that they look at the situation and they don't just complain about it. They don't have to develop the carping spirit. They just say, okay, this is here. What are my options? What can I do about it? And then, so the teacher and the parent's job is to help them if they see something that's, you think is valid, you just support them. It goes on and on. My daughter is 37 years old now and going through a challenging situation in her life. And I find it's the same. I listen, listen to what it is. Try to help her get solution-oriented. That's another term that Swami Kriyananda made very clear to us. Be solution-oriented, not problem-oriented. So look for the solutions. Look for a positive response to the situation. So if it's something that, there's different ways of developing your spiritually. And of course, meditation is crucial. Meditation, gets us calm enough so we can start to tune in to these subtler states of consciousness. Chanting and devotion are hugely important. Master said, of course, chanting is half the battle. But this quality of responding to life is also in there. I don't know if it's 33% of the battle or 16.5%, but it's a very key part of it. And it's actually, in some ways, it's more accessible because, meditation, you sit down and your mind's floating, flickering around, and it might be hard to go deeper sometimes. And chanting may or may not. For some people, chanting is easy. The first time they hear it, they just love it. Personally, it took me a couple of years to adjust to it because it was so different from anything else I'd ever experienced. But this idea of accepting life and not complaining is something we can just immediately jump in because it's staring us in the face every single day. Today, if you think about your life today, probably something happened that was an opportunity for spiritual growth. Think about it a little bit. What did happen today? Anybody want to share one? Yeah, doctor.
I just came from a corporate workshop, and normally it's a closed setting like this. Things are more in your control, but this was right at the entrance of a place where hundreds of people were, and normally my audience is at eye level, but this time they were in an amphitheater looking down at me, and people were coming and going in between me and my audience. It was distracting people. So I was like, this was an interesting work, but it all happened, this was the first experience, so I had to adapt as I was going.
Yes.
But I thought later, wow, this was an interesting experience.
Yes.
Of course, there are two more to come, so we made some suggestions to the people, but I said, well, it was just as fine, I'm better prepared for next time now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so many challenges, you might say, or opportunities.
And it definitely took you out of your comfort zone. Yes. Okay, that's a good example. Another one example people have? How about our young friend in the front here? Did anything happen today to you that was kind of hard? Did you have any challenges or anything today? Did you have one?
Sitting next to me is hard for him.
Yeah. Sitting next to you.
They both are great friends.
Somebody else that's younger. Do you have anything today that happened that was hard?
I don't know actually. I think study burden.
Burden of studies.
The burden of studies. That's definitely a challenge. Yeah, how could you respond to that in a positive way? How could you say yes to having to study? Have any ideas? Did you get tired studying?
Yeah, because our final exams are coming, so we have like, oh my god, there's like so much to do. So
Yes.
all the day you have to study and then just prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. Okay. So the challenge maybe is more energy. How could you get more energy?
By cycling because that makes me happy.
Okay, that's a great idea. So if you figure out how to take a cycling break in the middle when your energy goes down, that's probably going to help you, okay? Okay, that's a good example of what I'm talking about, just trying to find a solution. Amiya, did you have anything happen today?
Not really, but maybe getting late is a little stressful.
Getting what?
Getting late.
Getting late. Oh, you were late for school? Oh, okay, that's a big challenge. It's actually, we have this series of life skill cards that I use with the students, and one of them is getting up in the morning, developing the skill of getting up in the morning. And it's a challenge, because if you're late, what happens if you're late?
You miss a part of the class lecture, an important topic that is being discussed.
Yeah, how do you feel when that happens?
Sad.
Yeah, it has a kind of a depressing effect on your life. So you could look at that and say, well, today I was given the opportunity to realize that not getting there on time doesn't help me in my life. It's just something that causes problems. So you could say, how do I say yes to this? How do I say yes to the challenge of getting up in the morning? What could I do? Have any thoughts?
Maybe sleep early.
Sleeping early. Yeah. Is that easy to do? No. But you could, if you wanted, if you wanted to say it. We actually, on this card, we have 6 different things you can practice. I'll have to show this when we go home tonight. I'm staying with them. But one of the things is to get an alarm clock, and you put the alarm clock across the room, so you have to get up in order to turn it off. And then you promise that after you turn off the alarm clock, you're going to do what we call the awake and ready exercises. And then you can think about, do I really want to go back to sleep or not? But you have to do the exercises first. So this process, it doesn't have to be a grim process. You can have fun with it. You can say, oh my gosh, Master, Divine Mother, however you think of the Divine, says, what are you doing to me today? What's going on here? What's going on? Why did this circumstances, and what kind of a positive response could I have? So I'll just leave you with that. It's kind of it's a nice little thing to have in your life if you don't have it already. I use it as much as I can, every time I try to remember it, and it has had good results. Okay.